Okay, guys, let's get started on the CAA staff meeting. The big news here is, and we're going to talk about various aspects of this as we go through this meeting tonight, but the CAA is very soon to go to 12 teams, assuming we don't lose anybody. 11 this year, 12 next year. And with that, we're going to have some issues with integration with what's been going on with some of the new people. And I'll talk to you about that in more detail later. But for those of you that don't know, and I think everybody probably does, Stony Brook and Monmouth and North Carolina A&T are in the CAA this year. And so as we move forward, we'll see two schools in the north that are new. We'll see two schools in the south that are new. So it's going to be really a cool place to be, and it's going to be a fun conference to work, I believe, and I think it always has been. But I'm really thinking that it's a step up in the geography and the interest level and what people can do. So I'm going to go through some of the more important things that I want to discuss. If I don't get stuff in tonight and that you still have a question on, we'll try to answer it at the end. But you can also email me, and I'll get you the answers that you need, and I'll probably get most of the stuff done tonight that you need to know. The schedules are duplicated. ZebraWeb has the NCAA CAA schedule, and also the arbiter schedule is there also. The reason why we work both systems is so that we don't leave something out and we can always see who's available. So it's really, 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 really important if you work for other assigners that you block the dates out that you cannot work. Let us know. If we don't see you blocked and we have an opening and we want to put you in there, it's a really, really big waste of time if we put you in there and then find out later on that you're blocked out. So try to keep yourself up to date on your blocks in Arbiter, because that's where the assignments are initially going to be found. But along that line, it's a real problem if you have a game in Arbiter, but it's not duplicated in ZebraWeb, or it's in ZebraWeb, but it's not in Arbiter. Anytime there's a disconnect where you're missing one component of that, I need to know. You need to let me know, because there's a possibility of all kinds of screw-ups that could occur if we don't realize that we haven't or should have everybody equally assigned. I know there's been a little bit of concern about fees, and I want to explain to you that the fees overall in the CAA are higher this year than they were last year. Although your midweek fees are going to be less, your conference fees are a lot more. And so the fees are going to be the same for any level of game that you work, whether it's conference or non-conference in the CAA. The travel policy hasn't changed. You'll still get travel for your games. People that are really, really a long, long way from some of the sites because they're traveling, let's say from Florida to New England or New York down to Florida or something like that, and catching games on the way, don't expect to see your mileage coming from the largest possible distance. We'll look at that. If you think your mileage should be different or better, just let me know and I'll take a look at it for you. In most cases, it's going to be computed kind of automatically. Another factor in fees is going to be tolls, especially people that are going to be assigned games in and around, let's say, the bridges in New York. So if you do have tolls, we're going to try to compute them. I know Hofstra has told us that they were going to make computations on them. I gave them all the assignments so that they could make computations. If you find that any of them are incorrect or need to be amended, let me know, and I'll try to fix that too. All right, so there's a lot more things for us to talk about tonight, but I want to get to the thing that's going to be the biggest concern, and that is hotels. So, as a lot of you know, I actually make a lot of the hotel arrangements for the CAA schools. And a lot of it is because some people don't really want to do all that work. And if I make it, at least I know what's going on, and I can track it and keep it rolling. So I have a fairly up-to-date email that I'm going to send out that will give you all of the information about hotels. You'll start seeing that tonight or tomorrow in an email format. If you are the crew chief, I would like you to take a look at your games that you'll have hotel needs, like weekends, and that will be both non-conference weekends and conference weekends. And use that information on the information sheet that I provide for you for making and setting up reservations for your games. And even if you don't have a game or don't need a hotel for a couple of months, it's really going to be important for you to set up your crew for your games. And so what I'd like you to do is have the crew chief make the reservation for everybody, and then we can have everybody check in once we know for sure that the reservation that we have is going to be good. So the procedure will be, I'm going to give you information on hotels. Crew chief, call the hotel if there's a hotel presented there as the hotel for that weekend. Confirm that we have hotels for 3 umpires for the weekend. And I want 3 umpires to stay, unless it's just ridiculous, where you're really close, because of the time changes that are going to occur and cancellations and added games and things like that occur on weekends. I think it's a really good idea for the crew to work together and stay together. Everybody has their own room. And I also think it's a very important for on weekend series is for you all to socialize a little bit with one another, like go to dinner on Friday and Saturday night, or at least make some effort to get along and be friends. I think that's an extremely important part of the development that we have as umpires, and the relationships that we make with umpires will benefit us in the long run. I'll talk about that a little bit later on that. So the big thing is that in terms of hotels, most everybody is going to be pretty much the same as they were last year. North Carolina A&T, everybody except one weekend are going to stay at the Town Place Suites in Greensboro. At Stony Brook, we expect everybody to be able to stay at the Holiday Inn Express. I had various people calling different hotels today just to test out the procedure of making room reservations and setting them up. And we're kind of working the system to make sure that we have, accuracy in the information that we're giving you. And so there's no doubt in my mind that the expected hotel that you're given access to or that you're asked to call, there will probably be times that they can't accommodate us. But for the most part, they can. If you run into an unexpected lack of availability for hotels or an unexpected high fee for the hotels, I need you to let me know about that. So anything at all on hotels that seems off, that is not going to work, I need you to let me know. One of the things that we're doing this year is tightening up the procedures and adding procedures for the clock and the manner in which we handle starting the clocks and creating a penalty, if that's needed. I want you to know that we are doing a lot of work on that right now, and we have some documents that are in the process of edits and changes and so on that we will apply and get out to you so that you'll have information. But here's the important thing. I want these rules enforced. That means you can't have a rule here that you're going to ignore or you're going to decide not to do. If a pitcher steps off after his free reset, then you've already noted the reset the first time. You've given everybody a 1. They're allowed to do it for once for every hitter anyway. If there is an infraction, you've already indicated that he stepped off early on the first opportunity, and then if it happens again, call it. When the umpire on the field that's carrying the stopwatch is giving you near the plate umpire is giving you information about the clock's time and whether or not you're going to cause or call an infraction on someone, make sure that the information that he's giving you, you're following and that you're doing it. And the whole entire crew is going to do it on every single game of the weekend, every single game. We are going to do it exactly alike. And that goes for every single conference game that we have on all of our conferences, not just the CAA. So going from one conference to another, it's all going to be the same. And we're going to follow up with more information on that later as we get more involved. But we're going to do it the same. We're going to, I'm going to want feedback in your first few games as to how things are working. So I'd like you to send me an email after your first game or your first series and talk to me about issues that we need to address and for everyone, and then we'll apply that and answer those questions for the people to follow as we get into the season. But I do want the feedback. But more than that, I want 100% agreement across the board among all umpires in all games that we are going to follow these rules that have been laid out for us. The coaches have the rules. And by the way, if you're going to coach NCAA Division I baseball, you are required to see the rules video, just like you guys are. I mean, they're not going to have to take the test; they'd all flunk it. But if they did, they would have no excuse. They have to sign off. They have to have read and seen the video. So anything you tell them isn't going to be new. Now, they may not remember it, but it isn't going to be new, for them to follow up. On evaluations, we're going to set up evaluations in Arbiter for either crews or crew chiefs or peer evaluations. You're going to see them light up for your games before your first game, if you have any games this weekend. You're going to see them light up. So after you've done a series, then I want you to rate the whole series. primarily crew chiefs, make sure you're rating the whole series and be honest with everybody and completely open and transparent about the things that you see. So it's important. It's important for all kinds of reasons, not the least of which is future assignments and who should be working and who shouldn't be working. And so give us the best information you can so that we can make the fairest possible assignment decisions for umpires in Division I baseball. If you have an incident that occurs on the field or a discussion of some kind that occurs on the field, make sure that you do not entertain coaches in the middle of the diamond. So we have new protocols for that came about because of COVID, and we are going to still keep those protocols. And obviously this came up in the NCAA meetings. This is not going to be anything new. So remind them that they're not going to meet you around home plate. They're not going to meet you in the middle of the diamond. They're not going to meet you at first base. If they want to have a discussion with you, it's going to have to be at the 45-foot mark on whichever side of the field he's coming from. If you have a possible ejection, then you should kind of be reading this before the ejection occurs. I don't want you out there simply giving people a warning and saying something like, this is your final warning, and if you persist in this unsportsmanlike behavior, you're going to be eliminated or ejected or whatever. That's not the way you start the conversation. I want you to start the conversation by telling people how to behave. Let them know that they're doing something wrong and tell them how to behave. And coaches should be the conduit for this. If you have a problem with a team, don't be telling, the second and third, assistant coach or pitching coach or something like that. If you have a problem with the team that you expect that you want to improve their behavior, you need to go to the head coach and you need to tell the head coach something like, hey, I'm hearing too much garbage out of the dugout. This is something that's not going to be tolerated here. There's a violation of the rules, and I'm expecting you and I'm holding you to be responsible for that. And you as head coach, you are responsible for everything your team fails to do or does. You're responsible. So make sure that they know that they're responsible. And then it'll cut down on ejections big time. If you first start seeing a problem and you tell the coach to stop it or you tell the team to stop it, then that's good. That's the first step. Later on, you may have to give a warning. So if you have to do that, make sure you're ready. When you give that warning, make sure you're ready to eject that guy. Okay? Also, make notes. Carry pencil and paper on the field, make notes, because the coaches are all going to be writing a response to your ejection, and you are going to have to be able to write a response that basically says to anybody reading it, it basically says, my God, that umpire had no choice. That coach pushed the limit. He got warned. He got adequate warning, appropriate, let's say, leadership on your part about how to behave or how not to behave. And he gets another warning and he's ejected. I mean, my God, he had every chance in the world. I want you to be able to write a report that says that you gave him plenty of warning. Now, conversely, there are some times that a coach doesn't need to get a warning. In other words, something that he does is so egregious that you don't have to warn him. For example, he comes out in the middle of the ball field and yells and screams at the top of his lungs and calls you some kind of inappropriate name. At that point in time, don't consider whether or not he was truthful or not. He's not allowed to say that. Even if he's right, he's not allowed to say that in the middle of the ball game. Okay. Now, if he talks to you privately where nobody else hears it, then I'll leave that up to your own judgment. But if there are times where the coach is going to go crazy, he's going to say something really bad or do something really bad, you're going to have to throw him out. And, you know, the typical F-bombing you in public and insulting you in public, or doing something that would be insightful enough to create the other team retaliation, you need to be on those things. So on the schedule, I'll review the games as sometimes the crew will change. I'm expecting the crew chief on every weekend to work game number 1 on the plate. Game number 3 on the plate should be the umpire that is probably the closest to the site or has the least long drive. If you have a problem with the order in which you're looking at your games and the order in which you should umpire, let me know, and I want to fix that. We have a new strike zone initiative that got announced at the Baltimore meetings or the NCAA meetings. A thing that you should be conscious of and aware of is that TrackMan is here to stay, and it'll get nothing but better. And if we ever see our teams go to things like Hawkeye and things like that, it'll be even better still. But it's here to stay. You are going to have games where you're going to have TrackMan, and expect that. Now, the coaches cannot use TrackMan during the game. In other words, if you missed a pitch in the 3rd inning or you missed 10 pitches in the 3rd inning, he's not allowed to tell you that you missed 10 pitches, and he knows it because he saw TrackMan. That's not allowed. Okay, he's not allowed to do that. So if something like that happens, then that is a warning for sure. Okay, he's not allowed to do that. And so be aware of the possibility that in places where they have TrackMan, that they may be testing you. But we have a new strike zone initiative, and the NCAA has started to dictate to the teams that have TrackMan limits for what's going to be called a strike and what's going to be called a ball. Recognize the fact that in TrackMan, they're not looking at the whole ball on the strike zone. They're looking at the center of the ball in the strike zone. So there's got to be a buffer area around home plate that you can call a strike or a ball, you know, whichever the case may be, depending on how you read it. But a pitch that's in the zone, clearly in the zone, you need to be calling, because it's going to be recorded. Pitches that are out of the zone, you need to ball, and you need to start working on getting that information and using that information to make you a better umpire. So in terms of talking to people and talking to umpires and talking to college umpires and TrackMan and talking to professional umpires using their systems, they are getting better because they're using that information. And this is something that's going to be important for you to do, because your accuracy counts, and it's going to be a big deal. And so I talked to you about keeping coaches off the field, talked to you about ejections. One big thing about ejections: if you get to a point where you have had to issue a warning or a number of, let's say, orders, you know, to a coach about his behavior, his team's behavior, I need you to write that in the game report. If you have an ejection, I want you to call me at your earliest possible time, not convenience, your earliest possible time. This trumps convenience. If it's not convenient to call me until after the second game of a doubleheader, then that's too late because that stupid coach has already called me. Okay, I need to know that. All right, I need to be prepared for that. The last thing I want to talk about is a subject that umpires are talking to me about all the time that is maybe the secret weapon of umpires. So we've just conducted some training. We've done camps and clinics for the last couple of weeks. We've seen umpires in a lot of games, and we taught a lot about the laser plate. We taught a lot about positioning and improving judgment on plays, and in some cases rules and stuff like that. But there's a hidden component here that isn't so hidden. It's really, really, really important. And I want you all to get into the rules, and I want you to continue working on mechanics. Always look at another umpire and figure out if he might be doing something better than you are. If he is, you ought to think about copying it or even improving on that. And that's how we get better. But here's the other thing that might be harder. And that is, how do you gain acceptance? How do you get to the point where people want you? And I don't mean just coaches. I mean evaluators. I mean assigners. I mean people on your own crew. You need to know that maybe one of the most important components in success at this great, wonderful job that we all have, umpiring college baseball, is how well do you get along with people and how likable you are. Now, so for some of you, you could say, well, that shouldn't count. That shouldn't count because if I'm getting all my calls right, it doesn't matter if I'm an asshole. Okay, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, it does matter, because your acceptance as an umpire is going to depend at least somewhat on whether or not they like you. You don't have to suck up to people and make them and try to make them like you, but you have to be open and approachable, helpful, and teach when you need to teach. And don't belittle people either in the locker room or make fun of anybody or be sarcastic in any kind of conversation that you have with any player or any coach or anybody on your crew or anyone. The rules of getting ahead in baseball umpiring are the same as the rules of getting ahead in the hallways of high school. It's the same. If people like you, it'll be better for you. Trust me, it'll be better for you. So if you feel like you want to find out how well you're doing, ask me. I've heard about it. Okay. If you want to learn how to get better, then consider the fact that you have got to be a guy that they can tell you anything and trust that you're not going to tell somebody else. That's probably the secret weapon. If you are the guy that they can trust to tell something to, then you might be hitting on the secret. Now, at the same time, you are an umpire and you're being given information by another umpire. You got to be very careful who you tell. Don't say it to any other umpire. Say it to me, but not to any other umpire. I'm at the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer right now other than details on the rules presentations in the NCAA clinic. And Chris, I don't know, do we have any chats? I haven't been looking.
No, nothing in the chat.
Okay. No questions from anybody? Okay. Guys, remember, it's knowledge, skills, and personality. Get into the rule book, study your mechanics, work on your footwork, and work on your body language. Make everybody comfortable that you're going to be around, but be able to lower the boom when the boom needs to be lowered. But keep the boom off the field until you have to use it. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.